I'm sorry to say. But as I said before, that is the normal human process, that is how the world works, and we wonder if there is an alternative, but an alternative that works. Well, we see it, and we see Jesus doing that this morning. As he hung on that cross in agony, Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Forgiving people. Now let's see how this is put into practice at Calvary that day, and to do so, I want to look at the scene from Jesus' point of view as he hung on the cross, which is slightly different from the point of view of the disciples. We read about, in the Bible, Jesus would see everyone present that day. He would see from his personal point of view. He would see the great multitude made up of the many different factions of him. Two thieves next to him. He would see the two thieves next to him crucified, one of them sorry for their offenses, and the other proud, because he did it his way. Roman soldiers. He would see the Roman soldiers there, soldiers unconcerned about his suffering, or his agony on the cross, or the truth about who Jesus was. They were hardened by this, they were just following orders to make sure he was crucified. And while he died, he would see them playing dice and betting on his clothes. Pilate and his officers. He would see Pilate and his officials, an ambitious politician who was willing to deliver an innocent man into the hands of a malicious mafia, to save his own office from him. Herod, the puppet king. I would see Herod, the puppet king who thought Jesus was some kind of magician, and who secretly wanted to recruit Jesus for himself, and as his power, for his own purposes. The Jewish leaders and the scribes and Pharisees. I would also see the Jewish leaders and the scribes and Pharisees, so proud and arrogant, so prejudiced, so righteous, gloating in the success of their crucifixion, because Jesus did not fit their idea of how he should be the coming Messiah. 750. The howling mob, the paid instigators. There was also the howling mob, the instigators in the crowd, the mob that came to curse him, mock him, and torment him, and who were paid to do it, who were paid to demand his execution. The spectators, the rubber collars. And there must also be an element within the crowd whom we would classify as the spectators, the rubber collars, present just to see what was happening so they could report back and say I was there. Disciples and their followers. But there were also people in the crowd who were followers of Jesus. Followers who were totally powerless to act or do anything. These included Jesus' own disciples, friends and family, who were invisible in the crowd for fear of their lives. Genuine people. And further back in the crowd there must have been genuine people, those who knew that this was a travesty, and that Jesus was a good man, and that he was being punished unjustly. We the future. And finally, you could add us to that crowd, as our hearts watch this past event, horrified by the injustice committed against our Lord and King. What would Jesus say to so many people? So, on the cross, despite his pain, despite his anguish, despite the horrible people in front of him, despite the sincere and honest people in the crowd, what would Jesus say to everyone at the same time? Jesus said from the heart, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And I hope to give you an idea of why he said that. One, for himself. First, for himself, Jesus knew what he was doing. He knew he had to die to save people, to save the world from its sins, because he knew this was the only way to do it. But for if perhaps a little bit of resentment building up in his heart, a little bit of feeling unappreciated by those who falsely condemned him, he forgave them, thereby freeing himself from any thoughts of revenge that might have come to his heart. And thus way it remained, free to love them and die for them in this horrible way. After all, Jesus was human, he was just like you and me. 2. To those who harmed him. 751. Secondly, Jesus also forgave those who wanted harm to come to him. For him, as I said, it was never about revenge, it was never about getting revenge, since he knew that these people would get what they deserved from him. 1 day with